So I've been thinking about something recently regarding the CFT and their position limit rules that they were supposed to implement in the commodities market, most notably for gold and silver. But before I get into that, the COT report, I believe that stands for Commitment of Traders report, we are shown what the positions are for all types of traders in the Commex market. Specifically, this report is for gold and silver. And there's 3 different categories of people. You've got the commercials, which are basically the banks. You have the large speculators, which are, I guess, supposedly the, so for example, like the mining companies. Potentially what you might call a legitimate position holder, someone who would have a vested interest in the price of gold and silver. Now, if you were a mining company, after seeing the prices get smashed for a while back and staying down, you would be a little upset, wouldn't you not, that your thing you're investing in is going down? I mean, normally you would get, when the price of something goes down, you offset that with the opposite type of position. And or actually in this case, they could, if they had a bunch of short positions, they could offset the price falling and making money while the price fell. But whenever you look at the report, the COT report, it always shows that the commercials are the ones that have the large position of shorts every single time. And right now, and this, I don't think this applies to the COT report for silver, but the one for gold, which is, it's 2 different categories. One's gold, one's silver. Gold short positions apparently have just exploded to the upside. In other words, the commercials have taken out a mass quantity of additional short positions in the Commex market. That can only be, normally, a telltale sign that they plan on pushing the market down. There's no other reason for that. So, the reason I'm telling you this is it's odd because I don't think they did that in silver, but they did it in gold. Usually it's pretty much together. You look at the gold, you look at the silver, they're both okay. They got a bunch of short positions in silver, and they've got pretty much just as many in gold as far as a percentage basis. So yeah, both should be going down or whatever. Now, they continually have these positions, and every now and then they'll go with a long position and bet that the price is going to go up a little bit, which is interesting because they did that recently, and we've seen the price of gold go past its strategic important mark of $1,300. It was up to, what, 25 or so dollars, 20, 25 bucks yesterday alone, right? So now all of a sudden there's this very large short position taken out on the Commex market gold. I did not see this in the silver, but they did it within gold. I'm not sure, again, I don't know the reasoning why they left silver alone this time and only dealt with gold. But the bottom line is prices in both kind of follow each other. In other words, you're not going to have gold down and silver up. You're not going to have silver up and gold down. You're going to have gold and silver up or gold and silver down, pretty much. On a percentage basis, they might be a little different, but that's irrelevant because they're both either going up or they're both going down, and that's it. So this is a warning, potentially, that they're going to try to slam prices. We could see silver brought back down to 18 or who knows, dollars possibly when this happens. But they definitely have their position, and it's usually not too long after that position's taken out that you see the prices get pushed down. So that brings me to the other thing I want to talk about, the CFTC's duty, obligation, and law-abiding necessity to implement position limits. Which means, when I just read you that report that showed a massive quantity of short positions, those are all the very few banks. It could be a couple of banks. It could be one bank that just did that entire whole short position themselves, that took it on. That is what you call cornering the market. That's what you call we need position limits, because one entity should not be able to buy a huge controlling share, basically controlling number of contracts, because they can, will, and do push the markets up and down. That's the same thing the Hunt brothers did in the early 1980s there, and pushed the price of silver up by doing the opposite. Buying up all the contracts and sitting on them. And then they pushed the price of gold up. And then, of course, the government had to step in and force them out of that position and help them, actually. Jim Sinclair, you may have heard, gold expert, alleges that he was actually part of that process, which is very interesting. But the bottom line is the Dodd-Frank Act, which, God, was it 2011 that thing finally got passed? Thinking now it's 2014, I think it was 2011. And it said they have to implement position limit rules. First, they're going to start in the spot month. And then about a year later, they'll do all months. So the spot month would mean, for example, we're in March right now. If you have a huge position, in other words, you're exceeding the position limit rule that's implemented by Dodd-Frank, it only applies to the month we're in, the spot month. So if we're in March right now, you cannot have a huge position limit, or excuse me, you cannot take out a huge position, short or long, for the month of March. But in the commodities market, you don't have to just play in the month we're in. You could go out several months. Many months, as a matter of fact, out. So now you're not in the spot month. You can go ahead and get your huge short position. So I commented on that when it happened. I'm like, well, great, but we're going to have to wait another additional year when they first kicked this in. And the CFTC was dragging their feet, and we're having a meeting. We got to discuss how we're going to implement it. They dragged their feet like you couldn't believe. And then finally, way past the due date that the law even said they had to comply with by, all right, we finally got something. Sounds good. Okay, we're going to implement this. A week or 2 weeks, I think. It wasn't less than 2 weeks, but or more than 2 weeks. It was about a week to 2 weeks before it's supposed to be implemented. Compliance with the Dodd-Frank Act, which was already way behind. So technically, they broke the law. But they said we needed this time. We had to figure out something. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now go ahead and go forward with it. We're going to be implementing this in about 2 weeks. Okay. Judge from, I think, New York federal judge steps in last minute. I'm barring this implementation of this particular set of rules of the Dodd-Frank Act because the CFTC, you failed to show where, by implementing position limit rules, this would have any effect one way or the other. So we're going to not do this. This is on pause mode right now. So one of my kids likes to say when we're playing like hide and seek or something, Daddy, I'm on pause. You know, because I'm usually it. I got to find him. Daddy, I'm on pause. You're on pause. In other words, you can't get me because I got to come out and say something. And strangely enough, every time we play, she has to come out and say something. I'm on pause. So, federal judge, everybody, all you guys that knew we were rigging the market, the banks were rigging and controlling the market, the position limits are on pause. Now, let me get this straight. A federal judge stopped a law from being implemented, not because he said, well, it's unconstitutional, therefore that section of it can't be implemented, which is typical if that's the case. You can't have a law that's unconstitutional. So I'm barring that part of this implementation of the Dodd-Frank Act until Congress or whoever fixes it or whatever, right? He didn't say that because, number one, it's not unconstitutional. It's very constitutional because they have to regulate these things, and they already have a regulator who needs more power, which is the CFTC, to do that. And the power comes in simple position limits, and they were given that power. So the judge said because they failed to show how it would have a good or bad effect, they weren't allowed to implement it because there was no reason to. You can't do that as a judge because that's not a reason. That would be like saying every law Congress has ever passed, period, since they became Congress in 1776 or whatever, a few years later, technically. That all those laws are null and void because they didn't show. They don't have to show anything. If they create a law, for example, right after the Federal Reserve came into being, they created a law and ratified or changed whatever it was, the 16th Amendment, so that you now got to pay income tax. That's a law. Did someone stand up and say, hey, Congress, you didn't show how or why this might affect Americans, so we can't implement it? No. They create a law. If it's not barred or the opposite law exists in the Constitution, they can create it. It's that simple. So this damn judge said, because that's the reason that we're not doing it. And have you heard anything out of the CFTC or anywhere else that said, yeah, we're looking into this, we're going to try to comply with what the judge said to show him this is why, blah, blah, blah? No. They set it on the back burner. No one's saying anything else anyway, so just leave it alone. We got what we wanted. Which reminds me, the other day I talked about those guys, the elite bankers getting into this meeting. I showed you what the website was, told you where to find it. They're having this meeting where they're joking about mainstream America and the big bad banker and dressing up in drag, just having a good old time between themselves, showing how much power they have, that they've changed everything that they needed to change back from the Dodd-Frank Act. And one of them even jokes about Barney Frank, one of the guys that created that act, Dodd-Frank Act. What's the difference between Barney Frank and blah, 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 and they all laugh. So, remember that. Federal judge stepped in and overturned a key thing that would really bother these bankers because they would lose control of the precious metals market. If there's position limits, what that means is not one entity can control the market. So if they can't control the market, then a real market starts playing, right? And of course, naturally, the prices are going to rise to where they belong all by themselves, i.e. naturally. A natural free market. So that's gone nowhere. It's now 2014, and based on my calculations of when all this was happening, I recognize that, man, 2014 is going to be the year when the full implementation of position limits kick in, where all months are counted. Therefore, you can't have any limits, or you can't have any huge position. You have to comply with the limits. So here we are in 2014, but they already stopped that law from taking place. The judge, I did the research at the time and did a video on YouTube saying, oh, guess what this judge's name is? Who said this? Here's his name. And then I did the research. Who is the judge? Who would say such a ridiculous thing? He's got to be one of the club members. He has to be selected, or i.e. appointed, not elected. And I found that that is exactly what the case was. He was appointed, I believe, by George Bush. You know, because I know there's a lot of Obama haters, there's a lot of Bush haters, there's a lot of... I'm kind of every politician hater. I don't like any of them. They're all corrupt, period. So, those of you who want to, you know, who are hoping I'd say Obama appointed him, I'm sorry to tell you, George Bush did this time. But don't worry, because Obama's already appointed quite a few other people. And judges, etc. You saw him do the Supreme Court, right? Pick those people. So all you do is pick your guys. They comply with everything you say. They're part of the club. And the club says we don't want position limits. They don't get position limits. And that is exactly what has just taken place. Well, not just taken place, this has been going on. So, main purpose of this video is to talk about the huge short position that just got taken out on gold. So, what that is to me is a telltale sign that they're going to push the price down. Now, when I told you I bought some silver last week, wife told me to buy X number of ounces. I said, no, I think I'm going to buy less than that because I want to get back to this certain goal, and I've now met that goal and bought a little extra. But I didn't buy a lot extra because I thought to myself, I know how these bankers are. I've seen how they operate over these years, and they've been able to push the price down and keep it down this low, even though it's causing a lot of pain and suffering behind the scenes. People's gold, either allocated accounts, countries' gold, Germany, you name it, they're not getting their gold back. That's where the gold is. We're putting out these fires, so to speak. So I'm just being patient, waiting. Doesn't mean they can't slam the price down again because they want to teach people a lesson, get out of that market, it's ours. And every time they slam the price down, it has a different effect because a lot of people go out and buy it now that the price is cheaper. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for them. But that's the only mechanism they know how to use. It's the only mechanism they've ever used to do this. So they can't change game now. There is no other game. This is it. This is how they do it. So when people go in and play in their little Commex market and then demand delivery rather than just push the paper, buy and sell the paper, they're causing strain. Hey, they just took the real thing from us. We don't want that. We want them to just take a cash settlement. So even though very few people do that, it's enough to cause strain, which tells you if only a few people out of a massive number of these contracts that are out there are actually demanding delivery, and it's causing the strain to where we can't give countries their money back, their gold back, because we're using it to put those fires out on the Commex market. Holy crap. That's exactly why I'm still buying silver. I know where this is going. So the other side of this was, well, don't go crazy and buy all you can at the moment. Save some of that tax return money and just sit on it for a little bit and wait. You've already met back your goal you set, so that's fine. If the prices skyrocket all of a sudden for some unknown reason, so what? You've already got what you wanted. If they come down and get spanked down to, $17, $18, boom, go out and buy some more. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And this COT report has just given me all the information I need to know of what these bankers intend to do to the price of gold and silver. Plain and simple. So now that I'm back going to this, trying to get this vehicle registration taken care of again over at the driver's license office, hopefully I'm not going to wait in a zoo. I'm going before work. They open in 5 minutes, so hopefully I'll be able to get right in. Take care.